Let me clean the trash out of my event. Victoria Chen lifted the ice bucket, dirty water, melted champagne, soggy napkins, and threw it directly into Marcus Thompson's face. The liquid hit him like a slap ice sliding down his collar, the stench of old liquor and food scraps filling his nose. 300 people gasped. Cameras flashed. His daughter's text burned in his pocket. "Did your boss lady be nice tonight, Daddy?" Marcus stood there, dripping silent. What Victoria didn't know, what nobody in that ballroom knew, was that the janitor she'd just humiliated owned 75% of the company. And in 12 hours, her entire world would collapse. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story reaches. What happens next will blow your mind. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and regret. Marcus Thompson sat across from Margaret Patterson, his father's attorney for 23 years, and stared at the papers on her desk. Last will and testament, transfer of ownership, Sterling Corporation, all 37 floors, 400 employees, 52 million in annual revenue. His. "Your father left you controlling interest," Margaret said. Her voice was gentle, the kind people used at funerals. 75%. The rest is divided among board members. Marcus couldn't breathe. "I'm 28 years old. Your father built this company from nothing. He trusted you to continue his legacy. I don't know how to run a company. You have an MBA from Northwestern. I have a degree, Margaret. That's not the same thing." Marcus stood, walked to the window. Below, Chicago stretched out in concrete and glass. His father had helped build half of it. He had 30 years of experience. He knew every person on every floor. He knew. His voice cracked. He knew what he was doing. Margaret stood, moved beside him. "What do you want to do, Marcus?" He didn't answer immediately. Outside, a construction crew worked on a high-rise across the street. Men in hard hats, moving like ants, building something bigger than themselves. "I want to know if it's real," he said finally. "If what's real?" "Everything my father built. He used to say the people at the bottom are holding everything up. I want to know if that's true or if it's just something people say." Margaret frowned. "Marcus, I want to work there, on the ground floor, see what it's really like." "You want to work at your own company?" "I want to work in my own company, as an employee, nobody knowing who I am." "That's insane." Marcus turned to face her. "My father died at 61, Margaret. Heart attack. You know what his doctor said? Stress. He carried the weight of 400 people on his shoulders, and it killed him." His eyes burned. "Before I take that weight, I need to know what I'm carrying. I need to see the truth nobody shows the boss." Margaret studied him for a long moment. "How long?" "A year, maybe more. And if you find the truth is ugly, then I'll fix it." She sighed, pulled out a legal pad. "All right, we'll need to bury your identity, create employment records. Keep the board in the dark, though. Richard's old friend William Chen is still on the board. He might recognize you." "I'll risk it." "What position?" Marcus looked out the window again at the construction workers. "Night janitor. Nobody notices janitors." Margaret's pen stopped moving. "Marcus. Janitor Margaret. Make it happen." 3 weeks later, Marcus Thompson started his first shift at Sterling Corporation. Night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Mopping floors, emptying trash, cleaning bathrooms. Invisible. 12 months later, Maya's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, no relation to Rosa, pulled Marcus aside after school pickup. "Mr. Thompson, can we talk?" Marcus's stomach dropped. "Is Maya okay?" "She's fine. Academically, she's exceptional." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm concerned about something else. In class yesterday, we were discussing career aspirations. Maya said she wants to be a janitor like her daddy." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. When I asked why, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, "She said because janitors are invisible, and invisible people see the truth." She paused. "Marcus, that's a very adult concept for an 8-year-old. I'll talk to her. She also said, Mrs. Rodriguez hesitated. She said she's worried about you, that you work for a mean lady who makes you sad. Marcus closed his eyes. Thank you for telling me, That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus stood in his bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. When had he become this person? When had the pretending become more real than the reality? His phone rang. Margaret Patterson. We need to talk, she said without preamble. The board hired a new CEO. Marcus's blood went cold. What? William Chen passed away last month. I know you attended the funeral. Without his influence, the younger board members pushed through the hire. They want someone aggressive, someone who'll modernize operations. Who? Victoria Chen, William's daughter. She's got an impressive resume. Harvard MBA turned around 2 failing companies' ruthless reputation. Ruthless. Their word, not mine. She starts Monday. Marcus sat down heavily on his bed. Does she know about me? No. William never told her about the ownership structure. As far as Victoria knows, she answers to the board. Good. Marcus, listen to me. I've done some digging. Victoria's reputation is brutal. She's effective, but she leaves bodies behind. You need to think about revealing yourself before... No. Marcus. 6 more months, Margaret. Then I'll decide. She sighed. You're as stubborn as your father. Thank you. 6 months later. Present day. The alarm went off at 5:47 a.m. Marcus silenced it, checked on Maya still sleeping, elephant clutched tight and moved to the kitchen. Coffee, lunch prep, the routine that held his life together. Daddy! Maya appeared, rubbing her eyes. Moana pajamas twisted from sleep. Hey, baby girl. You're up early. I had a dream about you. She climbed onto the kitchen chair. You were wearing a fancy suit, like a king. Marcus's hands stilled over the sandwich. Yeah, what was I doing? Being brave. She looked at him with those impossibly wise 8-year-old eyes. Is tonight the party where the mean lady gets a trophy? It is. Are you gonna be brave tonight? Marcus knelt in front of her. What if being brave meant everything changed? Would that scare you? Maya touched his face. Nothing you do could scare me, Daddy. You're my hero. Something cracked in Marcus's chest. Get dressed. I'll make eggs. Drop off at Oakwood Elementary. Maya grabbed her backpack, then stopped. Daddy, promise me something. Anything, baby. Don't let mean people make you small. She kissed his cheek. You're too big for that. Marcus watched her run toward the school backpack, bouncing until she disappeared through the doors. Then he pulled out his phone. Margaret, tonight, after the gala. We move tomorrow morning. Are you sure I'm done being invisible? Sterling Corporation rose into the Chicago sky like a monument to everything his father built. Marcus parked in the employee lot, far from the executive spaces, and grabbed his duffel. In the locker room, he changed into his uniform, navy blue work pants, matching shirt. Marcus stitched over the pocket, steel-toed boots. Morning, Marcus. Rosa Rodriguez stood by her locker pulling out cleaning supplies. 72 years old, 19 years at Sterling, hands gnarled from decades of scrubbing. Morning, Rosa. How's your grandson? Her face lit up. Honor roll first in our family. That's wonderful. It is. The light faded from her eyes. I just wish I could be there more. But Victoria cut overtime 4 months ago. I work 40 hours, rent takes 35 hours of pay. Math doesn't work anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened. How much are they shortchanging you? Shortchanging, no, she just... Rosa paused. She cut everyone's overtime, said it was streamlining operations. But Marcus, some of us need those hours. I know. She doesn't see us. We're just numbers on a spreadsheet to her. After Rosa left, Marcus stood alone in the locker room. He pulled out his phone and opened a file Margaret had sent weeks ago. Victoria's cost-cutting measures. Overtime eliminated. Health benefits reduced. Pension contributions frozen. Her salary increased 22% the same quarter. Marcus closed the file and went to work. The morning passed in familiar rhythm. Empty trash. Mop floors. Clean bathrooms. Stay invisible. On the 12th floor, two managers talked outside a conference room. Did you see what Victoria did to the Henley account proposal? Stole credit again. Completely. Sarah worked on it for 3 months. Victoria presented it yesterday like it was her idea. Sarah's name wasn't mentioned once. That's Victoria. Climb over anyone, steal anything, never apologize. Marcus mopped nearby, silent as a ghost. On the 19th floor, he found Sharon pregnant, exhausted, crying in the break room. She called me incompetent, Sharon sobbed to her co-worker. In front of the entire department. Said if I can't handle the workload, maybe I should stay home and focus on being a mother. Sharon, you need to report her. And lose my job, I'm 6 months pregnant. Nobody else will hire me. I can't afford to fight her. Marcus cleaned the tables, rage building beneath his calm exterior. On the 24th floor, his father's old office, now Victoria's, he came face to face with her. Victoria Chen was 43, dressed in a black power suit that probably cost $3,000. Her hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp as glass. You! She snapped her fingers at him. Conference room B, there's a coffee spill. Handle it, now. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am, Ms. Chen. Marcus nodded, turned to leave. And janitor. Victoria's voice stopped him. Try to be invisible. Your presence is distracting. Marcus looked at her directly. I'll do my best, Ms. Chen. Something flickered in her eyes, irritation that he'd met her gaze, but she dismissed him with a wave. Behind him, her assistant Kelly whispered, Was that necessary? He's a janitor, Kelly. He doesn't require courtesy, he requires management. Marcus walked away before he did something he'd regret. Not yet. Not until everyone saw exactly who she was. Lunch break. Loading dock. Marcus sat beside Kevin Torres, 24-year-old marketing intern. She destroyed my campaign proposal, Kevin said, stabbing his salad. Didn't even read it. Just said, this is why interns shouldn't lead projects. Was it good? It was brilliant. 6 weeks of work. My supervisor loved it. But Victoria doesn't care. Kevin's voice cracked. I'm 24. I'm Latino. I'm nobody to her. Marcus chewed his sandwich slowly. You're not nobody, Kevin. Try telling her that. They sat in silence. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened a file. Kevin's proposal. Margaret had pulled it from the server. It was brilliant, creative, data-driven. Everything Victoria's strategy lacked. You going tonight? Kevin asked. To the gala. Yeah. Why? It's just Victoria celebrating herself for 2 hours. Marcus looked at Kevin directly. Exactly. Kevin frowned, confused, but didn't push. 3 p.m. Text from Lisa. Got Maya. We're making cookies. You okay? I'm fine. Thank you. Marcus. Are you sure about tonight? Marcus stared at the message. Then he typed, I've never been more sure about anything in my life. Okay. Be careful. Love you. Love you too. Tell Maya I love her. Marcus pocketed the phone. His hands were steady, his mind clear. Tonight, Victoria Chen would learn that invisible people see everything. And tomorrow, she'd learn that invisible people remember. 6 p.m. The building emptied, people rushing home to dress for the gala. Marcus changed in the locker room. His suit, dark gray, slightly worn, but clean. White shirt, tie from Lisa last Christmas. He looked like a man trying to belong somewhere he didn't. Perfect. Rosa appeared wearing a simple floral dress. You clean up nice, Marcus. Thanks, Rosa. You look beautiful. She blushed. I'm 72 years old. You're a strong woman. That's always beautiful. She squeezed his hand. Be careful tonight. Victoria's been drinking since 4 p.m. I saw 3 empty bottles in her office trash. Marcus's jaw tightened. Thanks for the warning. After Rosa left, Marcus pulled out his phone. Maya had sent a photo her and Lisa covered in cookie dough grinning. Love you, Daddy. Did your boss lady be nice tonight? Marcus closed his eyes. Breathed deep. Not yet, baby girl. But tomorrow everything changes. I promise. He straightened his tie and walked into the night. Bang. The Riverside luxury hotel blazed with light. Valets scrambled. Designer gowns glittered. Tuxedos gleamed. Marcus walked through the front entrance and felt every eye turn toward him. He didn't belong. Everyone knew it. Near the coat check, James Crawley, head of security, Victoria's boyfriend, 6'3", of arrogant muscles, spotted him and smirked. Look what crawled in, James muttered to his companion, loud enough for Marcus to hear. Marcus kept walking. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, champagne towers, string quartet. Marcus found a spot near the back wall. Stayed quiet. Watched. Victoria held court across the room. Crimson dress. Diamonds. Surrounded by admirers like a queen holding court. The lights dimmed. MC took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sterling Corporation's President and CEO, Victoria Chen. Applause erupted. Victoria glided to the stage, waving graciously. Thank you all for being here, she began, voice smooth as poison. This year has been extraordinary. Revenue up 32%, 4 new markets. Sterling Corporation is now a leader in our industry. Marcus's hands curled into fists. Leadership requires tough decisions, Victoria continued. Cutting inefficiencies, eliminating waste, holding people accountable. Some people can handle excellence. Others, she smiled, others find their proper level. More applause, laughter. She talked for 20 minutes. Her vision, her strategy, her success. Not once did she mention the people who actually did the work. When she finished, the room exploded with applause. Victoria stepped down, grabbed champagne, turned, and saw Marcus. Her smile vanished instantly. What the hell are you doing here? I was invited, Marcus said calmly. All employees were invited. Employees. She spat the word. You're the janitor. This event is for professionals. I am a professional. Victoria's face flushed. You clean toilets, Marcus. You don't belong here. James appeared beside her. Time to go, buddy. Marcus didn't move. I have every right to be here. You have nothing, Victoria hissed, alcohol loosening her tongue. You're nobody, a bottom feeder. The only reason you're employed is because we need someone to mop up after real workers. Phones came out. People whispered. Cameras pointed. You should leave, Marcus said quietly, while you still have the chance. Victoria's eyes went wide. Then she laughed, sharp, cruel. Are you threatening me, you pathetic? She turned, grabbed the ice bucket from a nearby catering station. Half-melted ice. Dirty water. Soggy napkins floating in champagne residue. Let me clean the trash out of my event. She lifted the bucket and threw it directly into Marcus's face. The impact staggered him. Ice-cold water exploded across his face, soaked his suit, dripped from his hair. The smell of old alcohol and food scraps filled his nose. The ballroom went silent. 300 people stared. Someone's champagne glass hit the floor. Shattered. Marcus stood there, dripping water pooling at his feet. Victoria's chest heaved. James, security! Get this man out! Now! James and 2 guards grabbed Marcus's arms, dragged him toward the exit. Let's go, janitor, James muttered. Don't embarrass yourself more. Marcus didn't resist. Let them pull him across the polished floor, leaving a wet trail. As they shoved him through the ballroom doors, Victoria's voice rang out triumphant. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that disruption. Some people simply don't understand their place in the world. Laughter followed him into the hallway. They threw him out the front entrance. Marcus stumbled onto the sidewalk soaking wet. A valet looked away quickly, too embarrassed to witness the humiliation. Marcus stood there, water dripping from his clothes, and pulled out his phone. Maya's text glowed on the screen. "Did your boss lady be nice tonight?" His hands shook, not from cold, but from rage so pure it felt like clarity. He scrolled to Margaret Patterson. "It's done," he said when she answered. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I want every board member in that conference room. I want the full audit, the HR complaints, the evidence of embezzlement." "Marcus, what happened?" "She threw dirty water on me, in front of 300 people." Silence. Then, "Jesus Christ, Marcus." "Tomorrow, Margaret. We end this. All of it. I'll have everything ready." Marcus hung up. He stood on the sidewalk, wet and humiliated, and looked up at the hotel. Through the windows, the ballroom still glowed, still celebrated. He thought about his father, about Rosa working 40 hours but only getting paid for 35 after Victoria's cuts, about Sharon crying, about Kevin's stolen work. Tomorrow, Victoria Chen would learn what his father taught him. The people at the bottom are holding everything up, and when they let go, everything falls. Marcus walked to his car, got in, drove away. Behind him, Victoria danced and laughed and celebrated herself. She had no idea that in 12 hours her entire world would collapse. The janitor was done being invisible. Tomorrow he'd become the reckoning. Marcus drove through Chicago's empty streets with water still dripping from his hair onto the steering wheel. The check engine light glowed like an accusation on the dashboard. His suit stuck to the seat. The smell of old champagne and melted ice filled the car. He didn't go home. Instead, he drove to the Bennett Villa, the place he'd avoided for 18 months because walking through those doors meant admitting what he'd become. The gates recognized his car and opened silently. The driveway stretched ahead, lined with lights that made the darkness feel smaller. He parked and sat there for a moment, hands gripping the wheel, breathing hard. The front door opened before he reached it. Margaret Patterson stood in the entrance, still dressed in her courtroom suit from earlier that day. She took one look at him, soaking wet, humiliated, furious, and her face went hard. "Inside, now." Marcus followed her through the foyer into his father's old study. The room smelled like leather and old books and decisions that mattered. Margaret closed the door and turned on him. "Tell me exactly what happened." Marcus told her. Every word, every moment. The way Victoria's voice had cut through the ballroom. The weight of the ice bucket. The laughter that followed him out. When he finished, Margaret was silent for a long moment. Then she walked to the bar cart and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Handed him one. "Your father would have burned the building down," she said quietly. "My father wouldn't have let it get this far. Your father also didn't spend 18 months mopping floors to prove a point." Margaret took a drink. "But he would have respected what you're about to do." Marcus set down his glass. "Show me everything." Margaret pulled out her laptop and opened a series of files. "Victoria's been busy. In 3 years, she's cut employee benefits by 40%. While increasing executive compensation by 35%. She's eliminated overtime for hourly workers' frozen pension contributions and reduced health coverage to the legal minimum. How much has she saved the company? $4.2 million annually. And how much of that went back to employees? 0. It all went to shareholder dividends and executive bonuses. Victoria personally took home an additional $300,000 last quarter." Marcus's jaw tightened. "What else?" Margaret clicked to another file. HR complaints. 47 in the last 18 months. Hostile work environment. Verbal abuse. Discrimination. Retaliation against whistleblowers. She paused. "Sharon Mitchell, the pregnant employee you mentioned, filed a formal complaint 6 weeks ago. Victoria had it dismissed and transferred Sharon to a lower-paying position. That's illegal." "Extremely. But Victoria has allies on the board. They've been covering for her because the numbers look good." Marcus stood and walked to the window. Below, the city spread out in lights and darkness. What about the embezzlement you mentioned? Margaret's expression turned grim. That's where it gets interesting. 3 weeks ago, I hired a forensic accountant to review Sterling's books. We found something Victoria's been very careful to hide. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Phantom vendor contracts. 8 companies that don't actually exist, all registered to shell corporations in Delaware. Over the last 2 years, Sterling has paid these fake vendors $2.3 million. Where did the money go? Offshore accounts traced back to Victoria's boyfriend, James Crawley. He's listed as a consultant for all 8 companies. Marcus turned slowly. She's been stealing from my father's company. Yes, and she's been very sophisticated about it. Without a deep audit, it looks legitimate. Consulting fees, technology, services, facility, maintenance. But none of the work was ever performed. Does the board know? Not yet. I wanted to wait until we had ironclad proof. Margaret closed the laptop. Marcus, what you're about to do will destroy her. Professionally, financially, possibly criminally. Are you absolutely certain? Marcus thought about Rosa's hands gnarled from 19 years of scrubbing floors. About Sharon crying in the break room. About Kevin's stolen work. About Maya asking if the mean lady had been nice. Schedule the board meeting for 9 a.m., he said. I want every member there, no exceptions. Done. And Margaret, I want to address the entire company afterward. All hands meeting at 11. Margaret nodded slowly. You're not just firing her. You're making an example. I'm showing 400 people that cruelty has consequences. Margaret stood and walked to the door. Then she paused and looked back. Your father used to say something. The measure of a man isn't how he treats his equals. It's how he treats the people who can't fight back. Tonight, Victoria showed everyone who she is. Tomorrow, you show them who you are. After Margaret left, Marcus sat alone in his father's chair and opened his phone. Maya's photo was still there, covered in cookie dough, grinning. He typed carefully. Baby girl tomorrow. Daddy has to do something very hard. But it's the right thing. I love you. Sleep tight. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, I know you'll be brave, Daddy. You're my hero. Love you infinity. Marcus closed his eyes and let himself feel it, the weight of what was coming. The fear of what he was about to unleash, the terrible certainty that there was no other way. Then he went upstairs, showered until the smell of humiliation was gone, and put on the suit his father had worn to his first board meeting. Custom tailored, perfectly fitted, the suit of a man who built empires from nothing. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw his father looking back. Tomorrow, Marcus said to the reflection. Tomorrow we finish what you started. He set his alarm for 6 a.m. and lay down on top of the covers fully dressed and waited for morning. Sleep never came. At 8:45 a.m., Marcus walked into Sterling Corporation through the front entrance for the first time in 18 months. Not the employee entrance, not the loading dock. The main lobby with its marble floors and soaring ceiling, and the receptionist who'd never seen him before. She looked up, startled. Sir, can I help you? I'm here for the board meeting, 24th floor. I'm sorry, but that's a closed meeting. I'll need your name and Marcus Thompson. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. Her face went pale. Mr. Thompson, of course. I'll notify. Don't notify anyone. I'll announce myself. He walked past her to the executive elevator, the one he'd cleaned 100 times but never ridden. His reflection stared back from the polished doors, tall, composed, dressed like someone who owned the building. Because he did. The elevator opened on the 24th floor. Victoria's assistant, Kelly, sat at her desk typing furiously. She looked up and her mouth fell open. You can't be up here. Employees aren't. Where's the board meeting? Conference room A, but you can't just... Marcus walked past her. Kelly scrambled up, heels clicking frantically. Sir, I'm calling security. Go ahead. He reached conference room A and pushed open the doors without knocking. 9 people sat around the long table, board members he'd read about in files but never met. They all turned expressions ranging from confusion to irritation. At the head of the table, Victoria Chen stood mid-presentation, laser pointer in hand. She looked at Marcus, and her face transformed shock, then fury, then something like panic when she realized he wasn't wearing his janitor uniform. "What the hell are you doing here?" She turned to the board. "This is the janitor I told you about, the one who disrupted the gala last night. I'm filing charges for trespassing and—" "Sit down, Victoria." Marcus's voice cut through the room like a blade. Quiet. Absolute. The voice of someone who didn't need to shout to command attention. Victoria blinked. "Excuse me," I said, "sit down." One of the board members, Gerald Hartman, 63, 20 years on the board, cleared his throat. "Young man, I don't know who you think you are, but this is a private—" "My name is Marcus Thompson. I own 75% of this company, and as of this moment, this board meeting is under my authority." The room went silent. Victoria laughed a sharp, nervous sound. "That's insane. You're a janitor. You're nobody." Marcus pulled out his phone and set it on the table. "Margaret, we're ready." The conference room screen flickered to life. Margaret Patterson's face appeared sitting in a law office with floor-to-ceiling law books behind her. "Good morning, members of the board. My name is Margaret Patterson. I've been the Bennett family attorney for 23 years. I'm here to verify that Marcus Thompson is indeed the primary shareholder and legal owner of Sterling Corporation, having inherited controlling interest from his father, Richard Thompson, upon his death 18 months ago." Gerald Hartman's face went white. "Richard's son. But you were told he was overseeing operations remotely," Margaret continued. "What you weren't told was that Marcus chose to work within the company as an employee to assess operations from ground level. As of this morning, that assessment is complete." Victoria stumbled backward into her chair. "This is impossible. I would have known. Someone would have told me." Marcus looked at her directly. "You never asked. You never wondered why a janitor was invited to the gala. You never questioned why I had the nerve to show up. You just assumed I was beneath you. You can't just—" "Margaret, please present the audit findings." The screen changed. Spreadsheets, bank statements, vendor contracts. Margaret's voice was clinical, devastating. "Over the past 2 years, Victoria Chen has authorized payments to 8 phantom vendors totaling $2.3 million. Forensic accounting traces these funds to offshore accounts controlled by James Crawley, head of security, and Ms. Chen's romantic partner. None of the contracted services were performed. This constitutes embezzlement, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty." Victoria shot to her feet. "That's a lie. Those are legitimate. We have documentation from the Delaware Secretary of State showing all 8 companies were registered by Mr. Crawley using a proxy service. We have bank records showing fund transfers. We have testimony from actual vendors whose contracts were reduced to make room for these phantom payments." Margaret's gaze was ice. "Ms. Chen, you've been stealing from this company for 2 years. One of the younger board members, Patricia Volkov, 48, investment banker, spoke up. "My God, this is criminal." "It is," Margaret agreed. "We've already shared this information with the SEC and the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're opening investigations as we speak." Victoria's knees buckled. She grabbed the table for support. It wasn't my idea. James handled all the vendor contracts. I just signed." "You signed fraudulent documents," Marcus said quietly. "You profited from stolen money. You're culpable." "Please," Victoria whispered. "Please, I can fix this. I'll pay it back. I'll resign quietly. Just don't—" "Margaret, show them the HR complaints." The screen changed again. 47 formal complaints, names, dates, detailed accounts of verbal abuse, discrimination, retaliation, hostile work environment. Sharon Mitchell, 6 months pregnant, demoted after filing a harassment complaint. Rosa Rodriguez, 72 years old, denied overtime pay despite company profits increasing. Kevin Torres, marketing intern, had his work stolen and presented as Victoria's own strategy. Margaret paused. These are just 3 examples. There are 44 more. Gerald Hartman removed his glasses and rubbed his face. Jesus Christ, Victoria. What have you done? I was doing my job. I was increasing efficiency, cutting costs, making tough decisions. You were destroying people, Marcus said. His voice was still quiet, still controlled, but something burned beneath it. My father built this company on the principle that success means nothing if it breaks people. You took his legacy and turned it into a machine that chews up human beings and spits out profit. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean I was under so much pressure. The board wanted results. The shareholders wanted growth. I was just... You were cruel, Marcus said. You humiliated employees. You stole credit. You cut benefits while increasing your own salary. And last night, in front of 300 people, you threw dirty water on me because you believed I was powerless. He leaned forward. But Victoria, I was never powerless. I was just watching, learning exactly who you are. Victoria collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Patricia Volkov turned to Marcus. What do you want to do? Marcus straightened. Victoria Chen is terminated immediately. James Crawley is terminated immediately. Both are permanently banned from Sterling Corporation property. Criminal referrals are being filed with appropriate authorities. The board will vote to void all executive compensation paid to Ms. Chen over the past 2 years pending legal resolution. Agreed, Gerald said immediately. The other board members nodded one by one. Victoria looked up, mascara streaming down her face. Marcus, please, I'm begging you. I have a reputation. I have a career. This will destroy everything. Marcus thought about Rosa's gnarled hands, about Sharon crying, about Kevin's stolen work, about Maya asking if the mean lady had been nice. You destroyed people, Victoria. Now you understand what that feels like. He turned to Margaret. Have security escort Ms. Chen from the building. She has 15 minutes to collect personal items. Nothing else. Already arranged, Margaret said. James Crawley is being terminated simultaneously on the second floor. Marcus nodded and walked toward the door. Wait, Gerald called out. Marcus, the company needs a CEO. Are you taking the position? Marcus paused. For now, I'll oversee operations directly. We'll discuss long-term structure next week. Today, I need to talk to the employees. He walked out, leaving Victoria sobbing at the table. Her empire collapsed in less than 30 minutes. In the hallway, Kelly stared at him with wide eyes. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who you were. It's all right, Kelly. You weren't supposed to know. He paused. How long have you worked here? 5 years. How has Victoria treated you? Kelly's eyes filled with tears. She didn't answer. Marcus touched her shoulder gently. That's over now, I promise. At 10:55 a.m., Marcus stood outside the company auditorium, where the all-hands meeting would begin in 5 minutes. 400 employees were gathering inside, some curious, some nervous, most completely unaware that everything had changed. Margaret appeared beside him. They're ready. Full attendance. People are scared, Marcus. Victoria's sudden departure is already causing panic. Good. Fear means they're paying attention. What are you going to tell them? Marcus thought about it. The truth. All of it. He walked through the auditorium doors and down the center aisle. Conversations died as people recognized him not as the CEO they'd never met, but as Marcus the janitor, the man who'd been humiliated last night. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's him. Why is he here? Oh my God, is he going to sue? Marcus climbed the stairs to the stage and stood at the podium. 400 faces stared back. He saw Rosa in the third row, confusion written across her features. Sharon sitting near the back, protective hand on her belly. Kevin in the middle section, looking like he wanted to disappear. Marcus gripped the podium and began. My name is Marcus Thompson. Most of you know me as the night janitor. Some of you have worked alongside me for 18 months without knowing my real identity. I need to tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I promise you it's true. He paused, let the silence build. I own this company. 75%. I inherited it from my father, Richard Thompson, who built Sterling Corporation from a single construction contract into what it is today. When he died 18 months ago, I had a choice. I could take his chair, run things from the executive floor, and never really understand what I'd inherited. Or I could do something different. The room was completely silent now. I chose to work among you. As a janitor. Night shift. Invisible. I wanted to see the truth, the version of Sterling Corporation that nobody shows the boss. I wanted to know if what my father built was real, or if success had corrupted it into something else. Rosa's hand went to her mouth. For 18 months I watched, I listened, I learned, and what I found broke my heart. Marcus's voice grew harder. I watched Victoria Chen humiliate employees for mistakes that weren't their fault. I watched her steal credit for other people's work. I watched her cut benefits while increasing her own compensation. I watched her create a culture where fear replaced respect, where cruelty was mistaken for strength, where people came to work every day terrified of losing everything. Heads nodded throughout the auditorium. Last night at the gala, Victoria threw dirty water on me in front of 300 people. She did it because she believed I was powerless. Because she believed janitors don't matter. Because she built an empire on the idea that some people are worth more than others. Marcus paused, let the anger he'd been holding settle into something colder. This morning I fired her. I fired James Crawley. I've referred both of them for criminal prosecution for embezzling over $2 million from this company. The board has voted to void their compensation pending legal resolution. Gasps erupted. Applause started somewhere in the back and spread like wildfire. Marcus raised his hand for silence. But I didn't come here to celebrate. I came here to apologize. The applause died immediately. I let Victoria's abuse continue for 18 months because I wanted to see how bad it would get. I wanted documentation, evidence, proof. But every day I waited was another day Rosa's overtime was denied. Another day Sharon faced harassment. Another day Kevin's work was stolen. I chose strategy over protecting you, and for that, I am deeply sorry. The room was silent again, but different now. Listening. My father used to say, the people at the bottom are holding everything up. Victoria forgot that. She believed success meant standing on top of people instead of lifting them up. So here's what's going to change starting today. Marcus pulled out a document. Effective immediately, all overtime restrictions are lifted. Hourly employees can work overtime with proper approval and will be paid time and a half as legally required. Health benefits are being restored to pre-Victoria levels. Pension contributions resume next quarter. Profit sharing will be implemented company-wide. If Sterling succeeds, everyone succeeds. More applause. People were standing now. Rosa Rodriguez is promoted to Director of Facilities. Sharon Mitchell is promoted to Senior Project Manager with full maternity leave. Kevin Torres is moved to the Executive Marketing track with his original proposal being implemented as company strategy. Rosa was crying. Sharon covered her mouth. Kevin looked stunned. But more than policy changes, I promise you this. No employee of Sterling Corporation will ever again be humiliated, degraded, or made to feel worthless. My father built this company to create opportunity, not destroy dignity. Anyone who violates that principle will answer to me directly. Marcus stepped back from the podium. I know I've lost your trust. I know that working as a janitor while secretly owning the company feels like deception. You're right to feel that way. I'm asking for the chance to earn back your trust by showing you every day that Sterling Corporation exists to serve the people who work here, not the other way around. He looked directly at Rosa. Thank you for being kind to a janitor you thought was nobody. You showed me what my father's legacy really means. Then he walked off the stage as 400 people rose to their feet, applauding not the CEO, but the man who'd mopped their floors, and finally decided to stop being invisible. The applause followed Marcus out of the auditorium and into the hallway where the sound finally faded behind closing doors. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his sides and kept walking until he reached the executive elevator. Inside alone, he let out a breath he'd been holding for 18 months. The elevator doors opened on the 24th floor. Kelly sat at her desk red-eyed, typing furiously. She looked up when Marcus approached. "Mr. Thompson, I've been fielding calls all morning. The media wants statements. Shareholders are demanding explanations. The SEC called twice. And—" She paused, voice dropping. "Victoria's lawyer called. She wants to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate. He said she's willing to return the money, all of it, if you'll drop the criminal referral." Marcus stopped walking. "Tell her lawyer that the U.S. attorney doesn't work for me. Once I made the referral, it left my hands. If Victoria wants mercy, she can plead her case to federal prosecutors." Kelly nodded and made a note. "Also, there are about 30 employees waiting outside your office. They want to talk to you." Marcus looked down the hallway. People lined the walls, some he recognized from his night shifts, others he'd never spoken to. They stood quietly, respectfully waiting. "Send them in one at a time," Marcus said. "And Kelly, thank you for staying. I know this morning has been chaotic. Mr. Thompson, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you really work night shift for 18 months, cleaning bathrooms and mopping floors?" "I did." Kelly's eyes filled with tears again. "I complained about you once, to Victoria. You missed a spot in the executive bathroom, and she made me write you up. I felt terrible about it, but she said if I didn't do it, she'd question my loyalty." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." Marcus touched her shoulder gently. "You were surviving, Kelly. Victoria created an environment where survival meant complicity. That's on her, not you." After Kelly composed herself, Marcus walked into his father's old office. Someone had already removed Victoria's personal items, the motivational posters, the awards, the photos of her accepting accolades. The space felt empty, waiting to be filled with something real. Marcus sat in his father's chair for the first time. The leather was worn smooth where Richard's elbows had rested during late-night decisions. Marcus ran his hand over the armrest and felt the weight of inheritance settle fully onto his shoulders. A knock at the door. "Come in." Rosa Rodriguez entered slowly, hands clasped together. She looked smaller, somehow more fragile in the executive space than she ever had, pushing a cleaning cart. "Mr. Thompson, I don't even know what to call you now." "Marcus, please. It's still just Marcus." Rosa's face crumpled. "You let me complain to you. About Victoria. About the overtime cuts. About my grandson. You listened to me like I mattered. You do matter, Rosa. But you were the owner the whole time. You could have fired Victoria right then, stopped everything." She wiped her eyes. "Why didn't you—" Marcus gestured to the chair across from his desk. Rosa sat carefully perched on the edge, like she might damage something expensive. "I needed proof," Marcus said. "Not just that Victoria was cruel, but that the cruelty was systemic. That it affected everyone, not just isolated incidents. If I'd fired her after one complaint, she'd have claimed discrimination, sued the company, and walked away with millions. The abuse would have been buried in legal settlements." Rosa nodded slowly. "So you let her hang herself?" "I let her reveal exactly who she was, to everyone. So when I fired her, nobody could claim it was personal or unfair. And now she's going to jail. If the prosecutors can prove intent, yes. Embezzlement is a federal crime." Rosa was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward. "Marcus, I'm 72 years old. I've worked 19 years here, but I don't know how to be a director of facilities. I don't have a college degree. I don't know computers or budgets or—" "You know people," Marcus interrupted. "You know which cleaners work hardest, who needs extra shifts, who's struggling at home. You know which supervisors respect their teams and which ones don't. You know more about facilities than anyone in this building because you've done the work every single day." He paused. "I'll get you training on the administrative parts, but the leadership part, you already have that." Rosa wiped her eyes again. Your father would be proud of you. I hope so. After Rosa left, Marcus saw 29 more employees. Each one had a story. Each one had been damaged by Victoria's regime in ways big and small. A woman named Patricia from accounting explained how Victoria had forced her to manipulate expense reports to hide the phantom vendor payments. I kept copies of everything, Patricia whispered. I knew something was wrong, but I was terrified if I spoke up I'd lose my job. I'm a single mother. I can't afford to be unemployed. Marcus assured her that her cooperation with the investigation would be noted and that no retaliation would occur. A man named David from IT described how Victoria had ordered him to delete employee complaints from the HR database. She said they were cluttering the system, but I backed them all up to an external drive just in case. I have every complaint filed in the last 3 years. Marcus asked David to deliver the drive to Margaret Patterson immediately. Kevin Torres came in looking nervous, hands stuffed in his pockets. Mr. Thompson, I don't know if I deserve that promotion. I'm 24. I've only been here a year. Your campaign proposal was brilliant, Kevin. Victoria knew it. That's why she stole it instead of crediting you. But I'm just an intern. There are people with more experience. Experience without integrity is worthless. You have both. Take the promotion. Prove me right. Kevin's eyes shone. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And Kevin, stop calling me sir. It's Marcus. Sharon Mitchell was the last one. 6 months pregnant, exhausted, moving slowly. She lowered herself into the chair with both hands on her belly. I need to tell you something, she said. When Victoria demoted me last month, I was ready to quit. I updated my resume, started applying other places. But nobody wants to hire a pregnant woman. I have 2 months until I'm due, and every company I contacted made excuses. Her voice shook. I was going to have this baby without health insurance, without income, without any idea how I'd survive. Marcus felt rage burn fresh in his chest. Sharon, I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. But it did happen, and now you're promoting me and I can't. She broke down, completely sobbing into her hands. Marcus came around the desk and knelt beside her chair. Sharon, listen to me. You're one of the best project managers in this company. Your reviews before Victoria took over were exceptional. The only reason you were demoted was because you stood up to her. That's not a weakness. That's courage. I was just trying to protect my baby. Exactly. And now your baby will have a mother who doesn't have to choose between dignity and survival. Marcus stood. Take your full maternity leave. 12 weeks fully paid. When you come back, you'll have childcare assistance and flexible hours. I want you here, Sharon. Sterling needs people who fight for what's right. After Sharon left, Marcus sat alone in the office as afternoon light stretched across the floor. His phone buzzed continuously. Messages from board members, lawyers, reporters, employees. He ignored them all except one. Lisa. Maya keeps asking if you're okay. Should I tell her what happened? Marcus typed back. Tell her the mean lady doesn't work at Daddy's company anymore. Tell her I kept my promise. 3 dots appeared. Then, she's going to ask how you did it. Tell her I stopped being invisible. The dots appeared again, longer this time. Finally. I'm proud of you, Marcus. Dad would be too. Marcus set down the phone and allowed himself one moment of weakness. He put his head in his hands and let the exhaustion wash over him. 18 months of pretending, of watching people suffer, of carrying the weight of knowledge nobody else had. It crashed into him all at once, and for 30 seconds he simply sat there breathing hard, letting it hurt. Then he straightened, wiped his face, and got back to work. At 4 p.m., Margaret Patterson arrived with 3 bankers' boxes full of documentation. She set them on the desk with a heavy thud. Victoria's office contents, contracts, emails, financial records, everything we need to build the criminal case. She opened the top box and pulled out a leather-bound planner. This is interesting. Victoria kept detailed notes of every conversation with James Crawley, including multiple entries discussing how to hide the phantom vendor payments. Marcus flipped through the planner. Victoria's handwriting was precise, methodical. She'd documented her own crimes in perfect detail, probably never imagining anyone would see it. "She's not going to walk away from this, is she?" Marcus asked. "Not a chance. The federal prosecutor I spoke with said this is one of the cleanest embezzlement cases he's seen. Documentation, money trail. Clear intent. Victoria's looking at 5 to 7 years minimum. And James? Probably more. He has prior arrests for assault. This won't be his first conviction." Margaret paused. "Marcus, I need to ask. Are you prepared for what comes next? The media is going to turn this into a spectacle. Secret CEO exposes corrupt executive. They'll dig into your life, Victoria's life, every detail of the company. Let them dig. I have nothing to hide. What about Maya? She's 8 years old. This is going to be everywhere. Kids at school will talk." Marcus hadn't thought about that. The weight of it settled heavy in his stomach. "I'll talk to her. Explain it in a way she can understand." Margaret pulled out a legal pad. "We also need to discuss the board. Gerald Hartman called me this afternoon. He's stepping down. Says he should have caught Victoria's fraud and feels responsible. I don't want his resignation. He's insisting. He's 73, Marcus. He wants to retire with whatever dignity he has left." Marcus sighed. "Fine. Who else?" "Patricia Volkov wants to stay. So do Chen and Rodriguez. But we need to fill 3 board seats, including Gerald's. Do you have anyone in mind?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Rosa Rodriguez, for 1 seat." Margaret's eyebrows shot up. "The janitor you just promoted. The director of facilities who spent 19 years watching this company from the ground level. She knows things board members never see." "Marcus, she doesn't have a college degree. She doesn't have corporate experience. She has integrity. She has perspective. And she's not afraid to speak truth to power because she's spent 2 decades being powerless." Marcus leaned forward. "My father built this company to create opportunity, Margaret. If I'm serious about that, I need board members who remember what it's like to struggle." Margaret made a note. "All right. 2 more seats. I'll think about it, but I want people who've actually worked, not career board members collecting checks." They spent the next hour reviewing legal strategy, financial projections, and operational changes. By the time Margaret left, darkness had fallen outside the windows. Marcus looked at his watch. 7 p.m. He'd been in the office for 12 hours. His phone rang. "Lisa." "Marcus, Maya's getting worried. She hasn't seen you since yesterday morning." Guilt crashed into him. "I'm coming now. Tell her I'm on my way." "She made you a picture of you being brave." Marcus's throat tightened. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. On the way down, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, then decided to answer. "Mr. Thompson." A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "My name is Rachel Kearns. I'm a reporter with the Chicago Tribune. I'm working on a story about Victoria Chen's termination, and I'd like to get your comment." "No comment." "Mr. Thompson, we have witnesses from the gala. People who saw Victoria throw water on you. We have documentation of the embezzlement. This story is going to print with or without your input. Don't you want to tell your side?" Marcus stopped in the lobby. "My side is already public. I addressed my employees this morning. If you want to know what happened, talk to them." "But you worked as a janitor for 18 months. That's an incredible." "I worked as a janitor because I wanted to understand the people who actually run my company. The people who come in every day and do the work nobody notices. That's the story, Ms. Kearns. Not the spectacle, not the drama. The people." He hung up before she could respond. Outside, the night air was cold. Marcus drove through the city, past the neighborhoods where people were heading home from their own shifts, past the places where Maya was probably watching the clock and wondering when Daddy would walk through the door. When he pulled up to Lisa's house, Maya was already at the window. The moment he stepped out of the car, the front door flew open and she came running. "Daddy!" Marcus caught her, lifted her up, held her tight. "Hey, baby girl." "Yay. Are you okay?" "Aunt Lisa said the mean lady is gone, but she wouldn't tell me what happened." Marcus carried her inside where Lisa waited in the doorway, arms crossed, but smiling. "Let's sit down," Marcus said. "I need to tell you something important." They sat on Lisa's couch, Maya on his lap, Lisa beside them. Marcus took a breath and figured out how to explain corporate fraud to an 8-year-old. "Remember how I told you I work at a company?" Maya nodded. "You're a janitor." "I was pretending to be a janitor. Really, I own the company. It belonged to your grandfather, my daddy, and when he died, he gave it to me." Maya's eyes went wide. "You own the whole company?" "Most of it, yeah." "Then why were you cleaning toilets?" Lisa snorted. Marcus shot her a look. "Because I wanted to see what the company was really like. Not the version bosses see, but the truth. And what I found was that the lady running things, Victoria, was being very mean to people." "The mean boss lady?" "Yes. So today, I told her she couldn't work there anymore." Maya thought about this seriously. "Did you yell at her?" "No. I told her calmly and firmly. And then I told all the people who work at the company that things were going to be better." "Did they believe you?" The question hit harder than Marcus expected. "I hope so, baby. But I have to prove it. I have to show them every day that I mean what I say." Maya touched his face with her small hand. "You're good at keeping promises, Daddy. You promised the mean lady would stop being mean, and she did." Marcus pulled her close. "I love you, Maya." "I made you a picture. Want to see?" She scrambled off his lap and ran to the kitchen, returning with a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. A stick figure in a suit stood in front of a building. A crown floated above his head. "That's you being the king of the company," Maya explained. "And that's your castle." She pointed to the building. "And that's me cheering for you." A tiny stick figure with pigtails stood to the side, hands raised. Marcus stared at the picture until his vision blurred. "It's perfect, baby. I'm going to put it in my office." "Really, the big office?" "The biggest office." Maya beamed. Then she yawned, covering her mouth with both hands. "Bedtime," Lisa said. "School tomorrow. But I want to stay with Daddy." "You can come home tomorrow," Marcus promised. "I'll pick you up from school myself. We'll get ice cream." "Chocolate. Whatever you want." After Maya was in bed, Marcus sat with Lisa at the kitchen table. She poured 2 glasses of wine and slid one toward him. "You did it," she said quietly. "You actually did it. Part of it. There's still legal proceedings, board restructuring, operational changes." "Marcus, stop." Lisa reached across and grabbed his hand. "You exposed a corrupt CEO, fired her, publicly revealed your identity to 400 people, and somehow managed to come out looking like a hero. Take the win." Marcus sipped his wine. "It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like I let people suffer for 18 months so I could make a point." "You gathered evidence. You built an airtight case. You made sure Victoria couldn't weasel out or claim discrimination." Lisa squeezed his hand. "And you showed every employee that you're not like her, that you see them as human beings, not assets." "I hope that's enough." "It will be. But Marcus..." Lisa's expression turned serious. "You can't keep pretending to be nobody. You're the CEO now. You have to actually lead." "I know. That means decisions other people won't like. Firing people who deserve it. Holding employees accountable. You can't save everyone just because you feel guilty about Victoria." Marcus nodded slowly. "Dad used to say leadership is about making hard choices people respect, not easy choices people like." He was right. Lisa stood and kissed the top of his head. "Get some sleep. You look like hell." Marcus finished his wine and drove back to the apartment, the small 2-bedroom that suddenly felt like a costume he'd outgrown. He stood in the doorway and looked at the worn couch, the cheap coffee maker, the laundry folded on the chair. Tomorrow, he'd start moving back to the Bennett villa. Not because he was abandoning humility, but because pretending to be poor when he wasn't felt as dishonest as Victoria, pretending to be competent when she wasn't. His phone buzzed. "Margaret." "Turn on the news." Marcus grabbed the remote. Channel 7 was running a breaking story. Victoria Chen's face filled the screen, her official corporate headshot polished and professional. The anchor's voice was grave. Former Sterling Corporation CEO Victoria Chen was arrested this evening on federal charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. According to sources, Chen and her boyfriend James Crawley allegedly stole over $2 million from the company through fraudulent vendor contracts. Both face multiple felony charges. The screen cut to footage of Victoria being led out of her condo in handcuffs. She kept her head down, hair falling across her face. Behind her, James Crawley was also in cuffs, shouting at the cameras. "This is a setup. Marcus Thompson is lying. He's trying to destroy us." The anchor continued. In a shocking twist, Sterling Corporation is owned by Marcus Thompson, son of founder Richard Thompson. Sources say Marcus worked undercover as a janitor for 18 months to investigate company operations. Thompson could not be reached for comment. Marcus's phone exploded with messages. Reporters, employees, people he hadn't spoken to in years. He turned off the phone and sat in the darkness of his apartment, watching the story loop again and again. Victoria in handcuffs, James shouting, his father's company being dragged through headlines. Marcus thought about Rosa's gnarled hands, about Sharon's tears, about Kevin's stolen work. He thought about Maya's picture with the crown above his head. He thought about his father's voice. The measure of a man isn't how he treats his equals. It's how he treats people who can't fight back. Victoria had failed that test spectacularly. Now Marcus had to prove he could pass it. Tomorrow, he'd walk into Sterling Corporation not as a janitor, not as a secret owner, but as the CEO his father trusted him to become. Tomorrow, the real work began. But tonight, Marcus Thompson sat alone in a small apartment, watching a corrupt CEO face justice, and allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, his father would have been proud. The television screen went dark, and Marcus sat in the silence of his apartment for another hour before exhaustion finally pulled him toward the bedroom. He fell asleep still dressed, Maya's crayon drawing clutched in one hand. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. Marcus showered, put on the same suit from yesterday, and drove to the Bennett villa to pack. The house staff greeted him quietly, respectfully, giving him space as he moved through his father's old bedroom, gathering the belongings he'd need for the transition back. In the closet, he found 3 of his father's suits, still hanging in protective garment bags. Richard Thompson had been broader in the shoulders, but they were close enough in height. Marcus ran his hand over the fabric and made a decision. "Mr. Thompson." One of the housekeepers, an older woman named Grace, appeared in the doorway. "I took the liberty of preparing breakfast. You'll need your strength today." Marcus smiled. "Thank you, Grace. You didn't have to do that. Your father never skipped breakfast, said it was the foundation of good decisions." She paused. "He'd be very proud of what you did yesterday." "I hope so." Grace's expression softened. "I worked for your father for 15 years, watched him build that company from nothing. He always said the day he stopped seeing employees as people was the day he'd lost everything worth having." She touched Marcus's arm gently. "You just proved you're his son." After breakfast, Marcus loaded 2 suitcases into his car and drove to Oakwood Elementary. He arrived just as the morning bell rang, and Maya came running out of Lisa's car with her backpack bouncing. "Daddy, you came?" Marcus knelt and caught her in a hug. "I promised, didn't I? Ice cream after school, remember? Chocolate. Whatever you want, baby girl." He kissed her forehead. "Be good today. I'll see you at 3. Lisa walked over, keys jingling in her hand. "You were on the news again this morning. They're calling you the undercover CEO." Marcus groaned. "I hate that." "Get used to it. You're famous now." She grinned. "My brother, the folk hero." "I'm not a hero, Lisa. I just did what needed doing." "That's exactly what heroes say." She squeezed his shoulder. "Now go. You have a company to run." Marcus arrived at Sterling Corporation at 7:30 a.m. The lobby was already buzzing with employees arriving early, whispering in clusters near the elevators. Conversations stopped when he walked in. People stared, some nodding respectfully, others looking away like they weren't sure how to act around him anymore. The receptionist, a young woman named Amanda, who'd always greeted him cheerfully during his janitor shifts, looked up, and her face went pale. "Mr. Thompson, good morning. Should I call you Mr. Thompson now? Or is it still Marcus?" "It's still Marcus, Amanda. Nothing's changed except the uniform." She smiled nervously. "Right. Of course. There are about 15 reporters in the parking lot asking for interviews. Tell them I'm not available. They're pretty persistent. Then tell security to escort them off the property if they don't leave voluntarily." Marcus softened his tone. "Please." The executive elevator was crowded with managers Marcus had cleaned offices for during his night shifts. They pressed themselves against the walls, giving him space he didn't ask for. Nobody spoke. The silence stretched awkward and heavy until someone finally cleared their throat. "Mr. Thompson, I just wanted to say what you did yesterday took guts." Marcus turned. The speaker was a middle-aged man named Robert Chen, senior accountant, no relation to Victoria. He'd always been polite to Marcus during the night shifts, even left his office neat so the cleaning was easier. "Thank you, Robert." "My wife works in HR," Robert continued. "She was one of the people Victoria forced to delete employee complaints. She's been terrified for months that she'd be held responsible." His voice cracked. "When you said yesterday that people were just trying to survive, that you understood, she cried for an hour. She hasn't stopped thanking you." The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor. Robert stepped out but turned back. "You gave us our dignity back, sir. Don't let anyone tell you that doesn't matter." The doors closed, and Marcus stood alone for the remaining floors, Robert's words echoing in his head. He'd been so focused on justice and evidence and strategy that he'd forgotten the simplest truth: people just wanted to be seen. Kelly was already at her desk when Marcus reached the 24th floor. She looked like she'd been crying again, but had pulled herself together with fresh makeup and determination. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Your schedule is packed. Margaret Patterson is waiting in your office. The board wants a meeting at 10. You have 17 interview requests from media outlets, and—" She hesitated. "There's someone here who doesn't have an appointment but says it's urgent." "Who?" "Victoria Chen's mother." Marcus froze. "Evelyn Chen is here." "In the lobby downstairs. Security wouldn't let her up without your permission." Marcus thought about it. Evelyn Chen was William Chen's widow, the board member who'd passed away months before Victoria was hired. Marcus had attended William's funeral, but barely spoke to Evelyn. "Send her up." Kelly's eyebrows rose. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Give me 5 minutes, then bring her to my office." Marcus walked into his office where Margaret Patterson sat reviewing documents. She looked up, coffee in hand. "Morning. You look like hell." "Thanks, Margaret. Great pep talk." "I'm serious. You need sleep. Real sleep, not whatever you've been doing." She set down her coffee. "I came early because we have a problem. Victoria's legal team is claiming emotional distress and wrongful termination. She was embezzling millions of dollars. They're saying you orchestrated a public humiliation campaign, that you could have handled this privately, but chose to destroy her reputation deliberately." Marcus sat down hard. "Are they actually trying to sue? It's a negotiation tactic. They want you to drop the criminal referral in exchange for Victoria's quiet resignation and sealed records." Margaret's expression was ice. "They're basically asking you to let her walk away." "Absolutely not. I told them you'd say that, so they're threatening to drag this through the courts for years. Depositions, discovery, media coverage. They'll make it as painful as possible." Marcus leaned back in his father's chair. "Let them try. We have documentation, witness testimony, forensic accounting. They have nothing except Victoria's tears and a good PR strategy." "Marcus, this is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Margaret. Letting her avoid consequences doesn't make it clean. It just teaches other people like her that cruelty is profitable." Margaret nodded slowly. "All right, I'll tell them we're proceeding with prosecution, But be prepared, Victoria's going to try to destroy you publicly if she can't win legally. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kelly poked her head in. Mrs. Chen is here. Send her in. Evelyn Chen walked into the office with the careful dignity of someone who'd spent a lifetime navigating difficult conversations. She was 71, small and elegant, wearing a dark blue dress and pearl earrings. Her eyes were red, but her composure was intact. Marcus, she said quietly. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus stood and gestured to the chair. Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry for everything. Evelyn sat carefully, hands folded in her lap. Margaret started to excuse herself, but Evelyn shook her head. Please stay, Ms. Patterson. I have nothing to hide. She looked at Marcus directly. I came to apologize for my daughter, for the damage she's done to your father's company, for the people she hurt. Her voice wavered, but held. William would be devastated. He respected Richard more than anyone. They built this company together in the early years. Mrs. Chen, you don't need to apologize for Victoria's choices. But I do. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Because I saw what she was becoming, and I said nothing. When William was dying, Victoria came to visit twice in 6 months. She was too busy climbing her career ladder to sit with her father while he faded away. She wiped her eyes. I should have known someone who couldn't show compassion to her own father wouldn't show it to anyone else. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Victoria made her own choices. You're not responsible. I recommended her for the CEO position, Evelyn said quietly. After William died, the board was looking for someone aggressive, modern. I told them Victoria had turned around failing companies, that she was brilliant and driven. I pushed them to hire her because I wanted to believe my daughter was the success she claimed to be. She pulled a tissue from her purse and pressed it to her eyes. I handed her the keys to destroy everything William built, and she did it without hesitation. Margaret spoke gently. Mrs. Chen, did you know about the embezzlement? No, God no. I found out yesterday morning like everyone else. Evelyn looked at Marcus. But I knew she was cruel. I heard the stories. Employees being humiliated. People being fired for minor mistakes. I told myself it was just tough management, modern business practices. Her voice broke. I lied to myself because I didn't want to admit what my daughter had become. Marcus came around the desk and knelt beside her chair the same way he'd done with Sharon yesterday. Mrs. Chen, your husband was a good man. He helped my father build something real. That legacy isn't destroyed because Victoria made terrible choices. Evelyn touched his face, tears streaming freely now. You're so much like Richard. He would be so proud of you. I hope so. He is. Evelyn's voice was firm despite the tears. Wherever he is, he's watching you carry on what he started. The right way. After Evelyn left, Marcus stood at the window looking out over Chicago. The city stretched endlessly, filled with people carrying their own burdens, fighting their own battles, trying to survive in systems that often felt designed to break them. Margaret joined him at the window. That was hard to watch. She deserved to say what she needed to say. Do you believe her? That she didn't know about the embezzlement? Marcus thought about it. Yes, Victoria's smart enough to keep her crimes hidden from everyone, including family. Especially family. Margaret checked her watch. Board meeting in 15 minutes. Are you ready? No, but let's do it anyway. The board meeting was tense. 7 members sat around the table. Gerald Hartman, looking exhausted. Patricia Volkov, taking notes furiously. 5 others Marcus barely knew. The empty chair at the head where Victoria used to sit felt like an accusation. Marcus took his father's chair, the one Richard Thompson had occupied for 23 years. It felt too big, too heavy with expectation. Thank you all for coming, Marcus began. I know yesterday was chaotic. Today we need to talk about moving forward. Gerald leaned forward. Marcus, before we begin, I need to formally tender my resignation. I failed in my oversight duties. Victoria's fraud happened on my watch. I should have caught it. Gerald, you're not resigning. I have to. The company needs... The company needs experienced board members who understand we all make mistakes. Marcus's voice was firm. Victoria was sophisticated. She hid her crimes well. You're not responsible for her deception. Patricia spoke up. Marcus is right, Gerald. We all missed it. If you resign, we should all resign. But I was chairman of the audit committee. And you'll strengthen those audits going forward? Marcus interrupted. We're implementing quarterly forensic reviews. Every vendor contract gets verified. Every expense report gets double-checked. We turn this into a learning experience, not a witch hunt. Gerald sank back in his chair, looking both relieved and uncertain. If you're sure. I'm sure. Marcus pulled out a document. We have 3 board vacancies to fill. I'm recommending Rosa Rodriguez for 1 seat. The room went silent. Patricia recovered first. The janitor. The director of facilities who's worked here 19 years and understands this company better than anyone in this room, Marcus corrected. She has institutional knowledge we desperately need. One of the other board members, a silver-haired man named Thomas Bradford, frowned. With all due respect, board service requires financial literacy, strategic planning experience. It requires integrity and perspective, Marcus cut in. Rosa has both. We'll provide training on the technical aspects. But I'm not putting another career board member in that seat who's never done an honest day's work. Patricia smiled slightly. I support the nomination. Gerald nodded. As do I. The vote passed 6-1. Thomas Bradford was the only dissent. Marcus moved to the next agenda item. We're also implementing company-wide changes. Profit sharing for all employees starting next quarter. Full health benefits. Restoration. Overtime approval reinstated. Childcare assistance for working parents. Thomas's frown deepened. That's going to cost millions. 4.7 million annually, Marcus agreed, which is almost exactly what we'll save by eliminating Victoria's phantom vendor contracts and cutting executive compensation back to reasonable levels. You're cutting our compensation. I'm aligning it with company performance and employee welfare. If Sterling succeeds, everyone succeeds, including the board. But we're not profiting while people like Rosa work 40 hours and can't afford rent. Thomas stood abruptly. This is socialism. Your father built this company on capitalist principles. My father built this company on the principle that people deserve dignity, Marcus said quietly. If you disagree with that principle, Thomas, you're welcome to resign. Thomas glared at him for a long moment. Then he sat down. I'm staying. Good. Because I need board members who'll push back when I'm wrong. But I also need board members who remember why this company exists. It's not just to make money. It's to create opportunity. The meeting continued for another hour. By the end, Marcus had outlined the next 6 months of restructuring policy changes and oversight improvements. It was exhausting and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. When the board members finally filed out, Patricia stopped at the door. Your father would be proud, Marcus. That was real leadership. After everyone left, Marcus sat alone in the conference room and let the weight of it settle. He'd just committed Sterling Corporation to millions in new expenses. He'd defended a janitor's appointment to the board. He'd told a wealthy investor to resign if he didn't like it. His phone buzzed. Lisa. Turn on Channel 7, now. Marcus pulled out his phone and found the live stream. A reporter stood outside Sterling Corporation's headquarters with a microphone. Just learned that former CEO Victoria Chen has been denied bail. Prosecutors argued she's a flight risk due to offshore accounts and international connections. Chen broke down in court, claiming she's being unfairly targeted by Marcus Thompson, who she says orchestrated her downfall as revenge for personal slights. The camera cut to footage from the courthouse. Victoria, in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, being led away by marshals. She was crying, makeup smeared nothing like the polished executive who'd thrown water on him 3 days ago. Marcus felt something twist in his gut. Not sympathy she'd earned her consequences, but something else. The recognition that destroying someone, even someone who deserved it, left marks on everyone involved. The reporter continued. Thompson, who worked undercover as a janitor for 18 months, has not commented publicly on Chen's arrest. Employees we spoke with had mixed reactions. The screen showed Rosa Rodriguez standing outside the building, looking uncomfortable under the camera's attention. Mr. Thompson did what needed doing. Victoria hurt a lot of people. Someone had to stop her. Then Kevin Torres appeared. Marcus gave me a chance when Victoria wouldn't. He saw potential in people she dismissed. That's leadership. But then another employee Marcus didn't recognize spoke. I don't know. It feels like he let us suffer just so he could play hero. If he owned the company the whole time, why didn't he stop Victoria sooner? Marcus's chest tightened. The question he'd been asking himself since the beginning. Why did he wait? Was it really about evidence and strategy? Or was it about pride, about proving he was better than Victoria by letting her destroy herself publicly? His phone rang. Margaret, are you watching the news? Unfortunately. We need to address the criticism. Some employees are questioning your motives. If we don't get ahead of this narrative, no, Marcus said firmly. I'm not going to defend my decisions to the media. The employees who were hurt deserve answers, but I'll give them those answers directly, not through television cameras. Marcus, your reputation. My reputation is the least important thing right now. Rebuilding trust is what matters. He paused. Schedule another all-hands meeting for tomorrow morning. I'll address the concerns then. After Margaret hung up, Marcus sat in the conference room as afternoon light faded into evening. Somewhere in the city, Victoria Chen sat in a jail cell facing years of prison. Somewhere else, Rosa Rodriguez was probably trying to figure out how to be a board member. Kevin Torres was working on the marketing campaign Victoria had stolen. Sharon Mitchell was going to bed knowing her baby would have health care. And Marcus Thompson, the undercover CEO, the folk hero, the man who'd exposed corruption and saved the company, sat alone wondering if he'd done it for the right reasons. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Maya FaceTiming from Lisa's house. Her face filled the screen, chocolate ice cream smeared on her cheek. Daddy, you forgot about ice cream. Marcus's heart stopped. He'd completely forgotten to pick her up from school. Baby, I'm so sorry. I got caught up at work and... It's okay. Aunt Lisa got me chocolate anyway. See? She held up a nearly empty bowl. Marcus felt tears burn behind his eyes. I promised you I'd be there. You're here now, Maya said simply. That's what matters. Are you still being brave? Marcus looked at his daughter's face on the screen. Innocent, trusting, believing in him completely despite his failures. I'm trying, baby girl. Some days it's harder than others. That's when you need me to cheer for you. She raised both arms like the stick figure in her drawing. I'm cheering, Daddy. Can you feel it? Marcus smiled through the tears he refused to let fall. I can feel it, Maya. Thank you. After they hung up, Marcus packed up his briefcase and headed for the elevator. Tomorrow he'd face 400 employees and answer the questions he wasn't sure he had good answers for. Tomorrow, he'd keep rebuilding what Victoria had broken. Tomorrow he'd try to prove he deserved the faith people were placing in him. But tonight, he drove to Lisa's house, picked up his daughter, and took her for a second helping of chocolate ice cream. Because some promises mattered more than board meetings and reputation management, and proving he was worthy of his father's legacy. Some promises were just about being a father who showed up. The ice cream shop was nearly empty at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus sat across from Maya in a corner booth while she demolished her second bowl of chocolate ice cream with the focused determination of someone who'd been promised something and intended to collect every bit of it. Aunt Lisa said you were on TV again, Maya said between bites. She wouldn't let me watch it, though. That's probably for the best. Why are people saying mean things about you? Marcus hesitated. He'd spent 18 months lying by omission, pretending to be someone he wasn't. He didn't want to lie to his daughter, too. Some people are asking questions about why I waited so long to stop the mean lady. They think maybe I should have done it sooner." Maya considered this seriously, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Were they there when you were watching?" "No." "Then how do they know what you should have done?" She ate the spoonful of ice cream. "Seems like they're just guessing." Marcus smiled despite the weight in his chest. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm 8. I know lots of things." She scraped the bottom of her bowl. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you going to keep being invisible now, or are you going to be the king?" The question landed harder than Marcus expected. "What do you mean?" Maya set down her spoon and looked at him with those impossibly perceptive eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. "When you were invisible, you could see everything, but nobody could see you. Now everybody sees you, so what are you going to do?" Marcus reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "I'm going to try to be both, see everything and let people see me. Think that's possible?" "I don't know, but you're pretty good at hard things." They drove home to the Bennett villa together. Marcus had spent the afternoon having his and Maya's belongings moved from the apartment. As they pulled through the gates, Maya pressed her face against the window. "This is where we're living now. This is home. Your grandfather built it. It's really big." "It is, but it's just a house, baby. What makes it home is us being in it." Grace met them at the door, already prepared with warm cookies and milk. She showed Maya to her new bedroom 3 times the size of her old one, with a window seat overlooking the garden and built-in bookshelves waiting to be filled. Maya turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "Daddy, there's so much space." "You can decorate it however you want. We'll go shopping this weekend." After Maya was asleep, Marcus stood in his father's study and pulled out the letter Richard had left him. He'd read it a dozen times since his father's death, but tonight he needed to hear his father's voice again. "Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't get to see the man you'll become, but I know you'll be someone who makes me proud. The company I'm leaving you isn't just buildings and profit margins. It's people. 400 families depending on us to do right by them. Don't ever forget that every decision you make echoes into their lives. Be fair, be honest, be willing to get your hands dirty understanding their work. And most importantly, be the kind of leader people trust, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. I love you, son. Build something worth remembering." Marcus folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the desk drawer. Then he pulled out a legal pad and started writing notes for tomorrow's all-hands meeting. The morning came too quickly. Marcus dropped Maya at school. Her excitement about her new bedroom had carried through breakfast and arrived at Sterling Corporation by 7 a.m. The parking lot was already full. Word had spread that he was addressing the company again, and people had come early. Kelly greeted him with coffee and a nervous smile. "The auditorium is packed. People are standing in the back. Some brought their own chairs." "How many?" "Over 400, almost full attendance." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "All right, let's do this." Margaret met him outside the auditorium doors. "I've prepared talking points addressing the criticism. Ways to frame your decision to work undercover as strategic rather than—" "I'm not using talking points, Margaret." "Marcus, you need to control the narrative." "No, I need to tell the truth." He squeezed her shoulder. "Trust me." The auditorium fell silent when Marcus walked through the doors. Every seat was filled. People lined the walls. Some sat on the floor near the stage. All eyes followed him as he made his way down the aisle. He climbed the stairs and stood at the podium without notes. Just him and 400 people who deserved honesty. "Thank you for coming," Marcus began. "I know some of you are angry. I know some of you feel betrayed. I know some of you are questioning whether I did the right thing and whether I did it for the right reasons." He paused. "Those are fair questions. I want to answer them." He stepped away from the podium, moving to the front of the stage, so nothing stood between him and the employees. "When my father died 18 months ago, I inherited this company. I was 28 years old. I had a degree, but no real experience. I knew how to read financial reports, but I'd never mopped a floor, or emptied a trash can, or worked a shift that left my back aching and my hands raw. His voice was steady, but unguarded. I was terrified of failing, of destroying what my father built. So I made a decision that seemed logical at the time. I would work among you to understand what I'd inherited before I tried to lead it. A woman in the third row, Marcus recognized her as someone from accounting, raised her hand. He nodded at her. "Why didn't you stop Victoria sooner? If you saw what she was doing, why let it continue?" Marcus took a breath. "Because I convinced myself that documentation and evidence were more important than immediate action. I told myself that if I fired her without proof, she'd sue the company and walk away wealthy. I believed I was being strategic." He paused, meeting her eyes directly. "But the truth is, I let my need to be right take priority over your need to be protected. And for that, I'm deeply sorry." Another hand went up. Kevin Torres stood. "But if you'd fired her right away, wouldn't she have just claimed discrimination or retaliation?" "Maybe. Probably." Marcus nodded. "But I could have started building the case faster. I could have involved HR earlier. I could have put limits on her authority while the investigation proceeded. Instead, I let 18 months pass while people suffered because I wanted an airtight case." His voice cracked slightly. "I put legal strategy ahead of human welfare. That was wrong." Rosa Rodriguez stood slowly from her seat in the second row. "Marcus, Victoria was already running this company when you inherited it. The board hired her. You didn't choose her." "But I chose to leave her in place," Marcus countered. "I chose to watch instead of act. And every day I made that choice, people got hurt." The room was completely silent. Marcus could feel the weight of their judgment, their evaluation, their decision about whether to trust him going forward. Sharon Mitchell raised her hand from the back. 6 months pregnant, standing carefully. "Mr. Thompson, can I say something?" "Of course, Sharon. And it's Marcus." Sharon took a breath. "When Victoria demoted me, I was terrified. I'm a single mother. I was about to have a baby. I had no support system and suddenly no income to speak of. I felt completely powerless." Tears welled in her eyes. "You restored my position. You gave me full maternity leave. You made it possible for me to have this baby without losing everything. Maybe you could have done it sooner, but you did do it. And that matters." Someone started clapping. Then another person. Within seconds, half the auditorium was applauding. Marcus raised his hand for silence. "Sharon's right that I eventually acted. But she's also right that I could have acted sooner. Both things are true. I can't change the past, but I can commit to doing better going forward." A man Marcus didn't recognize stood up. "What does that mean? Doing better?" "It means transparency. No more secrets. I'm the CEO now, openly. Every quarter I'll hold meetings like this where you can ask me anything. It means accountability. I've implemented oversight mechanisms to prevent another Victoria from doing what she did. It means putting people first. Profit matters, but not at the expense of dignity." Marcus paused. "And it means admitting when I'm wrong, which I was. I should have acted faster. I let people down by prioritizing strategy over compassion." The man sat down slowly, seeming satisfied, if not entirely convinced. Another woman stood. "Are you going to stay, or are you going to get bored with us common people and go back to being invisible?" The question had an edge to it, and Marcus understood why. He'd played a role for 18 months. How did they know this wasn't another role? "I'm staying, and I'm not going anywhere." Marcus looked around the auditorium. "My daughter is 8 years old. Her mother, my wife, died when Maya was 2. Cancer. It happened fast, and it destroyed me." His voice thickened. "For 6 years I raised her alone while finishing business school and trying to figure out how to be a father. When my dad died and left me this company, my first thought was, how do I build something Maya can be proud of? How do I create a legacy that shows her what integrity looks like?" He wiped his eyes, not bothering to hide the tears. "I can't do that by running away when things get hard. I can't do that by pretending to be someone I'm not. I can only do it by showing up every day and trying to be worthy of the trust you're willing to give me." He paused. "So yes, I'm staying. For Maya. For my father's memory. And for all of you." The silence that followed was different. Softer. More thoughtful. Rosa stood again. "I think I speak for a lot of us when I say we're willing to give you a chance, Marcus. But you have to keep earning it. Every day." "I will. I promise." The meeting continued for another hour. People asked about benefits, about restructuring, about Victoria's trial, about the board changes. Marcus answered every question honestly, admitting when he didn't know something and promising to find out. When it finally ended, people filed out slowly, some stopping to shake his hand, others just nodding as they passed. Kevin waited until most people had left before approaching the stage. "Marcus, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When Victoria stole my proposal, I almost quit. I almost walked away from this career entirely because I thought that's just how business worked. Powerful people take credit. Young people get crushed." Kevin's voice was thick with emotion. "You showed me that's not true. That there are still people who believe fairness matters." "Thank you." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "No, Kevin. Thank you. People like you are why this matters. Don't let anyone make you small ever again." After Kevin left, Marcus stood alone on the stage and let exhaustion wash over him. He'd done it. He'd faced their anger and their questions and their doubt. He'd admitted his failures without making excuses. Now he had to prove he meant what he said. 6 months passed like water through fingers. The media storm around Victoria's arrest eventually faded into background noise. Her trial was scheduled for early next year. James Crawley had already pleaded guilty and was serving 5 years in federal prison. Victoria's lawyers were still trying to negotiate, but the evidence was overwhelming. Sterling Corporation slowly transformed. Profit sharing kicked in. Health benefits were restored. Rosa Rodriguez attended her first board meeting wearing a dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion, and Marcus watched with pride as she questioned a vendor contract with the sharp insight of someone who'd spent 19 years watching where money actually went. Kevin Torres's marketing campaign launched to strong reviews. Sharon Mitchell had her baby, a healthy girl she named Grace after the housekeeper who'd been kind to her during her difficult pregnancy. Sharon returned to work after 12 weeks with flexible hours and childcare assistance. The company wasn't perfect. People still complained about policies and workload and the normal frustrations of corporate life. But the culture had shifted. People spoke up when something was wrong. Managers listened when employees raised concerns. Fear was replaced with something fragile but growing trust. Marcus made a point of walking through every department at least once a week, not as the CEO surveying his domain, but as someone genuinely interested in the work being done. He learned names, asked about families, and when someone said, "We've got a problem," he stopped and helped solve it. He also kept his promise to Maya. Every morning he dropped her at school. Every afternoon he picked her up himself, unless travel made it impossible, and even then he FaceTimed at bedtime. Her room at the Bennett Villa had filled with books and art supplies and the comfortable chaos of childhood. She'd made new friends adapted to her new school, and occasionally asked to visit their old apartment just to remember. On a Thursday evening in late November, Marcus sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports when Margaret knocked on the door. "Got a minute?" "Always. Come in." Margaret sat down with a satisfied smile. "The SEC just closed their investigation. They're recommending Victoria face maximum penalties. Between the federal charges and the civil suits from shareholders, she's looking at 7 to 10 years and complete financial ruin." Marcus felt something complicated twist in his chest. "How does that make you feel?" Honestly relieved. She hurt a lot of people, Marcus. Consequences matter. "They do." Marcus set down his pen. "I saw Evelyn Chen last week. She's moved to Arizona to live with her sister. Says she can't stay in Chicago with the shame of what Victoria did." "That's sad." "It is. But she also said something that stuck with me. She said sometimes the hardest part of love is accepting that you can't save people from themselves." Marcus looked out the window at the city lights. Victoria had every opportunity to do things differently. She chose cruelty. That's on her, not us. Margaret stood to leave, then paused. Your father would be incredibly proud of you, Marcus. You've turned this company into something that honors his legacy while making it your own. After Margaret left, Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled to Maya's contact. She was at Lisa's house tonight, a regular Thursday arrangement that gave Marcus time to work late when needed. He typed, "Love you, baby girl. See you in the morning." 3 dots appeared. Then love you, Infinity Daddy. Are you still being brave? Marcus smiled and typed back, every single day. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Sterling Corporation to find Rosa waiting outside his office with a woman he didn't recognize, late 30s professional, but nervous looking. Marcus, this is Jennifer Walsh. She's been working in facilities for 3 months. She came to me this morning with something you need to hear. Marcus invited them both into his office. Jennifer sat on the edge of her chair, hands clasped tight. Mr. Thompson, I don't want to cause trouble, but there's a supervisor in my department, Frank Morrison, who's been treating people the way Victoria did. Yelling at them, making them work through breaks, threatening to fire anyone who complains. Marcus felt ice run through his veins. How long has this been going on? Since before I started. People are scared to say anything because Frank's been here 15 years and they think he's protected. He's not. Marcus turned to Rosa. Did you know about this? Rosa shook her head. Jennifer came to me first thing this morning. I brought her straight to you. Marcus looked at Jennifer directly. Thank you for telling me. I know that took courage. Will you file a formal complaint with HR, and will others who've experienced this do the same? Jennifer nodded. If you promise we won't be retaliated against. You have my word. And Jennifer, you did the right thing. This is exactly what we're building, a place where people can speak up without fear. After Jennifer left, Rosa stayed behind. You're going to fire Frank, aren't you? I'm going to investigate thoroughly. But if the complaints are substantiated, yes. Immediately. Marcus ran his hand over his face. I thought we'd fix this. I thought people understood the culture we're building. Culture takes time, Marcus. You've been CEO for 6 months. Some people still think the old ways work. Rosa touched his shoulder. But you catching it now, dealing with it quickly, that's how you prove the culture is real. Marcus spent the rest of the day meeting with HR, reviewing Frank Morrison's file, and speaking confidentially with other facilities employees. By late afternoon, the picture was clear. Frank had been a problem for years, but under Victoria's regime, his bullying had been ignored because his department met its numbers. Marcus called Frank into his office at 4 p.m. The man walked in with defensive arrogance, arms crossed. I hear you've been questioning my management style, Frank said before Marcus could speak. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. Frank's face went red. You can't do that. I've been here 15 years. I have rights. You have the right to collect your final paycheck and exit the building with dignity. What you don't have is the right to abuse people and call it management. Marcus handed him a folder. 7 employees filed formal complaints today. 4 more came forward this afternoon. Your termination is for cause. HR will explain your options. This is because of that woman, isn't it, Jennifer? She's always been a troublemaker. Stop talking, Frank. Every word you say right now is making this worse. Marcus stood. Security will escort you out. Do not contact any current employees. Do not return to company property. If you violate these terms, we'll pursue legal action. Frank left spitting threats about wrongful termination lawsuits. Marcus knew they were empty. The documentation was solid. That evening, Marcus sent a company-wide email. Today we terminated a supervisor for creating a hostile work environment. This is a reminder that the culture we're building has zero tolerance for bullying, intimidation, or abuse of power. If you experience or witness behavior that violates our values, report it. You will be protected. No one is too senior or too established to be held accountable. We're all building this together. He hit send and immediately got responses. Thank you. Messages. Relief. A few skeptical questions about whether he really meant it. He meant it. Over the following months, Marcus fired 3 more managers for similar issues. Each termination sent a clear message: the old culture was dead. The new culture had teeth. Sterling Corporation's revenue grew. Employee satisfaction scores climbed. Turnover dropped to the lowest levels in company history. Clients noticed the difference: projects completed on time, communication improved, innovation increased. 1 year after Marcus had revealed himself, he stood in the auditorium for another all-hands meeting. This time, the atmosphere was different. People smiled when he walked in. Some called out greetings. The tension that had marked that first meeting was gone, replaced with something that felt like community. "Good morning," Marcus began. "1 year ago, I stood on this stage and apologized for letting you down. Today, I'm standing here to say thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for holding me accountable. Thank you for building something worth being proud of." He pulled out a document. "This is Sterling Corporation's annual report. Revenue is up 18%. Profit margins are strong. But more importantly, employee satisfaction is at 91%. Safety incidents are down 40%. Innovation metrics are the highest in company history." He set down the report. "These numbers matter, but they're not the real story. The real story is that we've proven you can treat people well and still succeed. That dignity and profit aren't enemies. That leadership means lifting people up, not standing on top of them." Rosa stood and started clapping. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet. Marcus raised his hand for quiet. "I want to share something. My daughter Maya is 9 now. Last week, her teacher asked the class what their parents did for work. Maya told her class, 'My daddy owns a company, but he used to be a janitor, so he would understand the people who really make things work.'" His voice cracked. "That's the legacy I want to leave. Not that I was rich or successful, but that I understood what mattered." He stepped away from the podium. "My father used to say, the measure of a man is how he treats people who can't fight back." Victoria Chen failed that test. I almost did too, by waiting too long to stop her. But together we've built something that passes that test every single day. And that's worth more than any profit margin. The applause followed him out of the auditorium and through the hallways. As Marcus rode the elevator back to his office, he thought about the journey from secret janitor to public CEO, from hidden observer to accountable leader, from man terrified of failing his father's legacy to man building his own. His phone buzzed. Maya texting from school. "Daddy, I told my teacher about you being brave. She said you sound like a hero." "Are you a hero?" Marcus smiled and typed back, "No, baby. I'm just someone who learned that the hardest part of being a leader is admitting when you're wrong and doing better. That's not heroic. That's just being human." 3 dots. "Then I think that is heroic." Marcus pocketed his phone and looked out over Chicago from his office window. Somewhere in this city, Victoria Chen sat in a jail cell awaiting trial. Somewhere else, Rosa Rodriguez was attending a board meeting as an equal voice at the table. Kevin Torres was leading a marketing team. Sharon Mitchell was raising her daughter while building her career. 400 employees were going home to families they could support because someone had finally decided their dignity mattered as much as the bottom line. And Marcus Thompson, the man who'd spent 18 months invisible so he could finally learn to see, stood in his father's office and understood something fundamental. Real leadership wasn't about being perfect or fearless or always right. It was about showing up every day, admitting your mistakes, protecting the people who depended on you, and building something worth more than money. It was about being brave enough to be human. And that was a legacy worth remembering.